Hi everyone, my name's Harrison. Welcome to A Town Called Yarn. Obviously not a real town. I've called this A Town Called Yarn because I wanted to create a place where I could talk about yarn related things, so crochet, knitting, that kind of thing, but maybe some other bits thrown in from time to time. Like I said, my name's Harrison. I live in the south of England. I'm 28. And I've been crocheting for about a year and a half now, and I've been knitting for only a few months. I'm very much a beginner knitter and a beginner crocheter, really. I'm a lot more confident with crochet because you can fix crochet a lot easier. Knitting kind of stresses me out, but I also really am enjoying the knitting that I'm doing. This is going to be a kind of typical podcast. I'm not entirely sure why they're called podcasts. I don't think anyone does them audio based, but I'm going to go with it. And this will probably follow the typical format that you are used to seeing. So kind of finished objects, whips, maybe any yarn that I've acquired, plans that I'm doing, any patterns that are exciting, and just bits like that. I've obviously never done one of these before, so finished objects from what you've seen is basically everything I've ever made. So I'm just going to show you some bits that I've made since I started crocheting, started knitting, to kind of show you the things that I've been doing. Some of them I've got here with me, some are gifts that I've given to people, and I will talk through them, and then we'll get on to things that are current, and then going forward I'll show you things that I'm finishing as I go. So the first thing I don't have with me is the first thing I ever made. So the reason that I started crocheting was to make something for my nephew's first Christmas. So my nephew's just turned 2, and so a couple of years ago I wanted to make him something. I take gift giving quite seriously. I always see it as a bit of a competition, and my goal was I wanted to make people cry for my nephew's first Christmas. Everyone was emotional. It's great, there's a baby at Christmas. So I wanted to make him a lion. His name's Leo. So I wanted to make him an Amigurumi lion. I bought a pattern that told me it was a beginner pattern. I'm not sure I agree. I find it very difficult. I figured out some basic stitches, but then doing them in the round found really difficult. So what I'll do is I'll put up a picture of what it was meant to be. So it's this lion, plus it would have been really, really cute. It was a really wonderful pattern. If I went back and made it now, I think I'd end up with something really, really good. But now I'll put up a picture of what actually ended up happening. I just thought I'll make a cube. I thought I can do flat panels. I figured out how to do flat panels. I thought I'll make a cube. And then when I started making the cube, I realised if I put a face on this, it would be a lion. And I defy anyone to tell me that this does not look like a lion. Not anatomically, but it's got the face of a lion. So I gave this to my nephew for his first Christmas back in 2022. It's a little bit haunted. I think it's sat in a room, in a shelf in his room, just kind of staring at him, and I hope he'll keep it forever. I think it's ridiculous, but I consider it an heirloom piece. From there, I then thought I should try something a bit simpler, so I thought I'd make a blanket. I made let me just grab it. So this used Paintbox yarn, which I got from Lovecrafts. I picked a colour palette, and I picked a simple pattern that didn't have kind of any increases, decreases, anything like that, because I didn't want to overdo it. And I ended up with this. So, and I'm really happy, probably about 100 hours, because I'm not a particularly fast crocheter. I definitely wasn't then anyway. I'm still not particularly fast, but this was my first blanket and I'm really proud of it. I haven't really ever used it as a blanket because I don't love the feel of the Paintbox yarn. I don't love just how it feels on the skin. But if there's ever an ice age or a really, really cold night, whichever comes first, I'm sure it will end up getting used. At the moment it just sits behind a chair because I have loads of blankets and don't really have anywhere to put my blankets. This was the second thing that I ever made, and I'm really, really happy with it. Really like the colour palette. I don't really, for most of this, I don't remember kind of hooks I used. I remember the basic yarn that I used, but then going forward with my whips, I kind of can tell you a bit more detail about them. So that's project number 2, and really the first success. I don't necessarily class the Lion Cube as a success. After that, I got really into the idea of blankets, and Tony from TL Yarn Crafts was doing a video on temperature blankets, because I think she had started a blanket that was for when she got, for the year she got married, I think is what she did. And I liked the idea of doing a blanket that I didn't have to wait a year to do, but I really liked the idea of a temperature blanket. But I didn't really want a commitment for a year at that point. So what I made was I picked, instead of doing every line was a day, I did every line was a month. And then this is the first 25 years of my life, is basically what it is. So I like the way that that pattern's turned out. I'll just show you a bit of it. I like the way that you can see the different kind of months. You can kind of tell when it's summer, tell when it's winter, and it's a little bit more patterned than a normal temperature blanket would be. This took forever because I made it quite big. It's also, it's not a very good blanket in that it's very long but not particularly wide. So I have used it. I find I use it more as a I find I use it more as just like a really massive wrap, because then it comes over the shoulders, and it's, rather than something that just lays on top of you, because I'm not 10 feet tall or 12 feet tall. I think it's ridiculously long. This, I used Aran weight yarn. It's a few brands. Some of it is the Sheps, I think it might be pronounced Sheeps, yarn. Some of it's, I think there's some Stylecraft in there. I think there's some Signet yarn in there. I focused on the colour palette rather than the yarn brand. What I didn't know when I was making this at the time is that not all Aran yarn weights are exactly the same, or not, or worsted, I suppose. They're probably closer to. So there is some, what I now know are tension issues, but ultimately it wasn't an issue. I added a border to it that I'm really happy with, and I really, really love it. It's far too warm to have this around me right now, but this was a project that I really, really liked. At the same time as making that, I made another temperature blanket, which was again for my nephew. It was for his first birthday. So really sticking on topic of, I wanted to make things that meant I won whatever gift giving opportunity there was. I made him a temperature blanket where every line, and I'll put a picture up of the blanket because I don't have it with me. Every line was a day for that one, and it was the temperature at the time that he was born, right up to the first year. Luckily we had his kind of birthday party a few days after his actual birthday, which meant I could finish it. It was a bit of a panic because I made it in like 3 weeks. It was like all I did for 3 weeks, but I'm really, really proud of it. So that used the exact same yarn as this because I just had loads. I tend to buy, especially when I'm buying commercial yarns, I get a bit panicked, so I tend to buy way too much yarn. So luckily I had enough for 2 blankets, and I still have loads of it in stash. I bought probably enough for 3 temperature blankets, which is ridiculous. But really, really proud of both of those projects. Let me just check my notes to see if there was anything else that I was... There's a bit more over the last year. I've done a bit more amigurumi. I tend, again, mostly for gifts. I'll put up a picture of some pieces that I made for my nephew for the Christmas just gone. I really like amigurumi as gift knitting, especially for my nephew because he's a child, so they're toys. I don't necessarily love the process of amigurumi, especially the really small stuff that I made for him for his birthday. For the ones that I put a picture up of, I planned on making 50 of those. They are all from, I don't know where the books are. I'll find out the book and I'll let them blow. There's 2 books. One is kind of normal animals and then one was birds. And there's 26 patterns in each. I thought, oh, I'll just make them all for his birthday. And I made a basket, and I thought, fill a basket, that would be wonderful. I ended up making, I think, about 6. It started to hurt my hands because they're so small. The cotton, I don't love working with cotton. I find it's quite kind of drying on my hands. So that's kind of where that ended up. I want to make a few more every year for Christmas, so eventually he has kind of a good amount, kind of a basket of toys that he plays with, loads of soft toys, and then if my sister has any other children, they can kind of be passed down, is the plan. But I'm not making 50 at one go, because I like myself, and I want to enjoy my life. So then finally for crochet, I really love Christmas and I really love Advents, and I've before had like 4 Advent calendars going at once, and there'll be like a chocolate one will be maybe like a kind of Lego one, that kind of thing. Discovering the world of yarn Advents has really changed my life. It's ridiculous. So the one that I got last year was by Pigment and Ply, who is, you'll see a lot of the projects, a lot of the knitted projects I've done are using her yarn. I think she dyes in a way where it's kind of like, I feel like her colours that she sees in her head are what I'm looking for. I really, really enjoy what she makes. And so I got her Advent for last year, which was, the theme was, I don't remember what the theme was, but it was really lovely kind of mood boards, and I made a corner-to-corner crochet blanket with this. It's quite a small blanket, or it's not, but it is compared to kind of the 10 feet long temperature blankets that I've made. And this is just a corner-to-corner. What I did was I just added in each colour as I got. I managed to keep it up through the month, so I finished it pre-Christmas. All I had to do was weave in the ends at the end of the month. I opted for the Christmas Day skein, which is this kind of, I think that's showing pretty true to colour, this kind of chocolatey brown in the middle, because I wanted to make sure I used all the yarn, but I didn't want to end up with just a bit at the end that was just one colour, because obviously that was 100 grams rather than 20 grams that the rest were. This is all 20 grams of sock weight yarn. So I really, really love it. I really, really love the colour palette. They're not doing a Advent calendar this year, so instead and I might talk about it a little bit later, because I've kind of chosen the Advent calendars that I'm getting this year, so I might talk about that. But I'm really, really happy with this, and if they ever do an Advent calendar in the future, I probably will get it, because I really, really enjoyed this. So then, moving on to knitting. So I started knitting just after Christmas. I kind of told myself that I wouldn't get into knitting. I couldn't wrap my head around how it worked, so I thought I'll just do crochet. Crochet works for me. My mum knits a bit, so I thought she can do knitting, I'll do crochet. And then for some reason, I think because I started buying hand-dyed yarn, so I've got a lot of these kind of nice single skeins, and where crochet uses so much yarn, I find there's less that you can do with a single skein with crochet. So I decided to pick up knitting, and I started, and I don't have them because I ended up ripping them out because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I started a sample scarf yarn. I just used some kind of DK yarn that I had. I bought some straight needles, and I just moved on to that kind of project. But it wasn't really for me, because once I'd done the first set of repeats, I was like, well, I don't want to do this again, because I've kind of learned how to knit. Now I want to make something that I want to make. And I had this wonderful yarn from Pigment and Ply. Both the 2 finished knitting projects that I've got to show you are from Pigment and Ply yarn. And it was in Boucle. So I decided for my first knitting project, and fully do not recommend, this is a kind of Boucle cowl, kind of an infinity cowl, that I really, really love the colours of it. It's really, really warm. The boucle is so squishy that it's really, really nice to have on your neck. I don't recommend your first project to be made out of boucle yarn, because it's a little bit of a faff to work with, especially where really it's kind of one very, very fine strand of nylon with then the wool wrapped around it. But I'm really happy that I did. I'm really happy that I persevered. I knit this on, I think, kind of 5mm needles, because with boucle yarn I looked up and it's good to knit on a bigger needle than you would a normal DK, just so it has room to kind of breathe and fluff up. And then I just crocheted it together at the end. The crocheting, I did this kind of just single crochets just to join it together. It's a bit messy purely because my gauge changed so drastically through the project. So it's kind of had to become quite tight. If you look, if I hold it up, you can see that, if I hold it up that way, you can see that there's quite a lot of extra on one side. And that's just because my gauge got a lot looser as I became more confident with knitting. I had to watch a lot of videos of how to loosen up my knitting because I was knitting right on the tips, and I found it was just, and I was like, surely this isn't what people are doing because it's horrible. And so I loosened up, but I really, really like this. I haven't really had a chance to wear it because we had kind of that weird where it was kind of felt mild or somewhere, and I'm not much of a scarf wearer as it is, but I'm really excited to wear this next winter or whenever it next gets cold, which in the UK could well be the summer. But I'm really, really proud of that. So that's a Boucle Cowl. It wasn't a pattern, I just kind of knitted the full skein and then bound off and then crocheted together. And then finally, for kind of things I finished, was the first pattern that I followed. So this is the Clockwork scarf by Stephen West. And it's, yeah, that's showing up. So I wanted something that was a proper pattern but wasn't overly complicated. I didn't really want to get into stockinette. I wanted to really be a garter pattern, but that had a bit of something to it, and this was perfect. So you can see, if I hold it up a bit closer, it's got the stripes there. So each stripe is a mixture of, it's 2 Pigment and Ply yarns again that I got into mystery sets that they released at the start of the year. And so it's the solid mixed with the variegated. It's not a super kind of solid or super strong contrast, but I really, really like the effect. And then there is slip stitch details against every panel, which ends up with this detail, which I really, really love. I really love how this, whereas again, I really love the yarn. It's quite a simple pattern. It's quite thin, so I'll get a lot more wear out of it, I think, than a kind of thicker, chunkier scarf like the ones that I find you normally buy. And this was the second thing I knitted, and I'm really, really proud of it. There's some mistakes. It took me a while to figure out the make one left and make one right without having holes in them. So there are a few, so there are a few holes where those were being done. You won't be able to see them because they're quite small. And then these slip stitch, I cannot say that phrase, these little details are meant to be kind of done in stockinette. They're meant to be flat, so you're meant to knit and purl. I only really figured out that he meant to slip purl-wise after I was pretty much done with the first section. So I just carried on doing it the way I'd been doing it, so it was even. But you can't really notice, so unless you kind of knew the pattern really well or were looking for it, you wouldn't be able to tell. That is my second ever knit project that I'm really happy with. I have knitted a few other things that I don't have. Only one other thing, which was a cowl. Let me, I mean, I don't have a picture of it, so I won't go into it, but I knit the Age of Brass and Storm, or the Age of Brass and Steam shawl, out of some DK yarn from Skein and Stitch, which I really, really enjoyed. But that's everything that I finished. So that's really a look at everything I've made over the last 18 months. There's some other bits that I haven't, there's a few like kind of odd blankets that I did really quickly that I haven't shown. But that's everything that I'm kind of proud of that I finished over the last 18 months. So let's talk about whips. So I've got 3 whips that are kind of current going on, and then after that I've got a couple of a couple of projects, one of which is a cowl that I'm going to start, that I'll talk about, and then will hopefully be a whip the next time I film one of these. So if I start with my main whip at the moment, which is another Stephen West shawl called the Faded Undulation shawl. So let me just work out without getting all tangled up. So I'm on section 3 of this shawl. So is that, yeah, that's about the right colour as well. So I went to the Southern Wool Show last September, and I bought this wonderful green fade from Bellica Yarns. Do I have, yeah, from Bellica Yarns, is that, there we go. So it's a kind of sock weight 75-25 yarn, and I bought 4 colours, and I'll show you the colours in a second. And I really like this detail of I suppose undulations is a real word, where it kind of goes up and down and it's growing outwards. So it started at the bottom, it's got an I-cord detail on every edge, and this is my first ever I-cord, which I was kind of thinking that sounds really complicated, but actually it isn't. And I really enjoy the effect it has, so I'm happy I did that. It had an I-cord cast on as well, which I found very easy, and it's my favourite cast on that I've done. It obviously wouldn't be suitable for everything, but I really enjoyed it. So this is colour 1. What you do is you kind of knit with one colour until you've got only 50 grams of yarn left, and then you start alternating with colour 2, and then you drop out colour 1 and do just colour 2 for a bit, add in colour 3. It's designed to have 5 colours, but I'm just using 4 colours because that's what I have in this colour palette. But that's colour 1. So then if I show you, so that's I'm getting to the 50 gram point of that. So I need to cake up my other yarns at some point. But then these are the remaining 3 colours so they're all the Bellica yarns, all the same. So this is the fade. So I really love the colours. She helped me when we were at Southern Wool Show. She really helped me pick out the fade, because I couldn't work out whether I wanted to start with a lighter colour or end with a darker colour. So she was really helpful with that. But yeah, these are the colours. So they don't have names, I don't think. No, they don't have names, but they're just they're obviously green. So I'm ploughing ahead with that. It was a bit of a slow start, but now I'm into the pattern. It's moving along quite fast. You have to do slip knits for the decreases, and for some reason when I read that in the pattern I thought that's going to be so complicated, so I waited till I had like a free weekend to really get into it, and then it turns out it's not actually that complicated, so I didn't need to. But I'm really enjoying that. So like I said, that's the West Knits Faded Undulation shawl. I'm knitting these on 3.75, which I think is a bit bigger than the pattern calls for. The pattern calls for, I think, a 3.5. I went up a size because I found I'm quite a tight knitter now, so I wanted to give it as much space and kind of still have some nice drape on it. And these are the Leica needles, which I have a full set of the kind of interchangeables because I really like them. And then I've got some stitch stoppers from Yarnworks on the end that I really enjoy. One thing I'm happy about with knitting is with crochet, I really love the bits, I love the notions, and it's fun that knitting's kind of given me a whole new set of notions I can buy, which is fun, but does mean I'm always ordering little packages, much to my boyfriend's frustration. There's always something coming through the door. The next 2 whips I've got on the go are both crochet. So, and they're both kind of long-term projects that I'm going to be working on throughout the year. So they're both with yarn clubs. So the first is it's by Pixie Yarns, has a quarterly yarn club that she's doing called the Footstep Yarn Club. So it's a fade that will be a full circular fade, and she's releasing them every quarter. And what I really like is you'll be able to kind of join in whenever you want. So when she dyes up the second lot, she'll still be selling the first lot, and then even if at the end of the year you should still be able to buy the full year's worth, which I like because it means you can either wait to see it, but also you don't feel like you have to jump on like you might be missing out, because you can join halfway through the year if you don't want a new year-long project at that time, which I really, really enjoy. I'm at the end of the first quarter currently, so it's not spoilers because they're also not mysteries. She's showing you the full fade each quarter when it comes out. And all I'm doing is just a moss stitch blanket, which I don't know why I'm doing a moss stitch blanket, because this is, it's on a 3.5mm, I use Clover and More hooks. It's on a 3.5mm hook using fingering weight yarn. So this is going to take forever, and it is taking forever. I ordered this and I think it came in late March, and I'm still going with the last bit because it's quite slow going, but I'm really, really enjoying the fade so far. So this is the first 5 colours. I've got a little bit left of this yellow to add in. And then I'm just going to add to it each quarter. So it will be an ongoing project. It will probably be one I finish early next year by the time I get the last lot. And it's quite wide, so it's a big old blanket, which I like. Because I'm not sure how much length I'll get on it. It might be that this actually ends up becoming the length of the blanket, and then it might end up going like this, just depending on, I mean, I don't really have to decide because that's just how I'll put the blanket over me. But at the moment, I'm hoping it'll be long enough for it to fade downwards, because I think that'll look really nice. And this isn't a pattern, I have a crochet stitch dictionary, so I just looked up the numbers for moss stitch and just cast on until it felt like it would be long enough. I think I cast on something like 400 stitches, so it's a lot of stitches, it takes a while, but moss stitch also goes quite fast. So I think moss stitch is also called seed stitch in crochet, potentially, but I call it moss stitch. I'm really enjoying this. I think it'll be really nice. It's just a lot of hours, but it's also a long-term project that I'm not overly bothered about finishing at any one time. I know it's not going to be finished till early next year anyway, so that's not stressing me out. And I'm keeping this in all but one of my projects. I keep in a project bag by Butternut Handmade, who sells on Etsy. I really, really love their project bags. This is a kind of little floral one. I haven't kind of picked any rhyme or reason for why each one is. I've also got the Faded Undulation shawl is in one of them. I ordered one, and then this was the first one I ordered, and I just really, really enjoyed it. So I just keep buying them, and I love them. They're really good quality, all drawstrings, which I prefer. And that's just what this is in. So that is I'm calling it just like a moss stitch blanket. Sorry, I'm just checking my notes to see if there was anything else to say. No. So then my last whip is another year-long whip. So this is, you'll have seen loads of these. This bag is one I made. I did some sewing about a couple of months ago. It's kind of ridiculous. It's really tall. I thought I was being smart by taking into account the height when I did a box bottom. Is that what it's called? A box bottom on it. But I didn't take into account the width that loses, so it's kind of become a little bit of an odd shape, but it's handy. It fits, I think it will fit a blanket in it for most of the year. So this is the Granny Wrap by Annaboo's House. So you all have seen, I've seen loads of these. I've seen mostly Ali from Little Drops of Wonderful. She's the person who kind of not encouraged me, I don't know her. She's the person who spoke about this, and I thought, I really want to make one of those. So my battery died there, so I'm going to start again because I don't know how much I'd spoken about. Not the full video, I'm not going to start that again. So I was talking about the Granny Wrap by Annaboo's House. So this is a free pattern on their website. So it's kind of more of a recipe, I suppose, than a pattern, because it's quite easy to adapt. And I'm using the Secret Treasure Box Blanket Club by Green Lampkin Yarn. I've chosen the Classic DK. You can get it in either Classic DK or in Sparkle DK, but I'm not a huge fan of Sparkle within yarn. So I've gone for the Classic DK. I'm doing this on a 4.5mm hook, and I'm just going to make it throughout the year. So I've seen a lot of people have made these, particularly Ali from Little Drops of Wonderful, who I watch a lot, and she's got, I think, like 3 of them, and I wanted to make one, but I didn't know. Originally I was thinking maybe I'll wait and I'll do it with minis once I've got a kind of minis lying around. I was thinking I might do it with an advent, but then this blanket club came up and I thought this would be perfect. And I'm really happy to have a DK one as well. I think this will be really, really lovely when it's bigger at the end of the year and it gets a bit colder. So this is fully up to date. So this includes April's yarn. So if you don't have April's yet, you should do though. It's the 18th of May, so I think everyone should have it. But if you don't, then you can skip ahead. So, but this is it so far. So I'm really, really happy with how it's turning out. So you kind of, it starts here in the centre and then you grow out as you add the lines in. And the way that, I think her name's Suzanne from Green Lambkin Yarns, the way she's dyed these, I really, really love the way they work together. It's kind of got that scrappy feel where there's not really any rhyme or reason, there's not any kind of themes flowing through it, which I really enjoy. I really like it. I feel like this feels like a kind of classically crocheted piece, almost something that you'd see kind of back from the kind of things you imagine crochet would be from kind of, I don't know, the 60s, the 70s, that kind, if that makes any sense. It might not. We're starting to get down to the point where you're kind of getting one full back and forth of each colour. So I think by the end of the year it will look even scrappier on the rest of it because you'll be doing part of a row in one colour, which I'm quite happy about. I think it will look really good. And the only real thing I'm taking into account is I'm trying to make it so like colours are not next to like colours. So if I get a blue, if there's 2 blues in a month, or if I ended last month on a blue, I won't start with a similar colour to make it just seem as random as it can, really. Yeah, that's all there is really to say about this. Really, really happy with it. Really, 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 really enjoying it. I put them in, I'm doing weaving in the ends as I go, and I put them in when I get them. And it's just kind of a nice, it's quite mindless. So normally when they come, I'm kind of like, I'm happy to just jump into something that's really quite straightforward. And this is in a bag that I made. So the only one of my project bags that isn't a button-up handmade bag. I made this, I did a, oh, zips. You can tell I made it. So I thought, when I made this, I thought I was being really smart by taking into account the box bottom with the height. So I made it a lot longer, but I didn't take into account the width. So it's quite a weird shape. But I think it's quite a good size still. I would like it to be a bit wider. And I think if I ever make one again, I think I probably will make another one like this that's a bit wider and maybe a drawstring. But I'm happy with it. I was happy to kind of use my sewing machine and get some sewing done. And that's everything for my works in progress. I do have a couple that I haven't worked on in a little while that I might talk about if I do work on them. I've got a few things that have kind of languished a little bit. But I'll go through them if they ever get worked on again, or they will get worked on again at some point, or I'll frog them and turn them into something else. So finally, is it finally? I thought I'd talk about a bit of kind of plans of things I want to start, hopefully before the next time I film one of these. So I've actually got the yarn all caked up and ready to go for 2 projects. The first one I'll talk about is a hat. This, I'm planning on using the Sockhead Slouch pattern by, I don't think I know, I'll have it down in the description. I'll put everything in the description, by the way, all the kind of patterns, all the yarn, all of that kind of information. I don't think I have it written down though, but the Sockhead Slouch pattern, which I think is very, very popular, so I think you probably know about it, or it's easy to find anyway. I'm going to make a hat using this yarn. So this is, again, Pigment and Ply. This is the Bathing Court of Ladies yarn. I think this is just stunning. I think it's such a good selection of colours. I think it's going to work out really, really nicely as a hat. I don't really wear hats all that much, but I think it's because the hats you buy from shops don't feel like they fit my head particularly well. I've got quite a large head, as do all my family. So I think when I make one myself, I think being able to make it the right length and the right kind of custom, I think I'll enjoy wearing a hat, especially in the colder months. But I'm super excited about this. And this will be the first project that I'll be doing in the round. So I'm planning on doing it magic loop. So I have these Chalgu needles ready to go. The plan is magic loop. Magic loop stresses me out a little bit because I tried it a few months ago, like on an earlier project, and I found I just kept knitting on the same side. So I'd be like 3 rows in on one side, but then I've not knit anything on the other side. But I'm hoping now that I'm a bit better at knitting that I will not do that. I do have some 16-inch circulars that I might try on. I've tried knitting on those before as well. I just found it was quite tight and felt quite uncomfortable knitting kind of at the edge while there's loads of yarn kind of already there. But I'm kind of playing around with it. I've also got some DPNs that I might try. It's kind of a lot of needles. I don't know how to hold them. So I will knit in the round. I will make this into a hat. What method I use is kind of anyone's guess at the moment, but I'm hoping that magic loop works for me. And again, that's in that bag, a kind of good single size, single skein bag. And then the second thing that I'm hoping to cast on, which will probably be my next cast on, because once I've caught up with the Moss Stitch blanket using the Pixie Yarns Yarn Club, is Jonathan Days made a shift cowl by Andrea Mowry, and I saw it and I thought that is exactly the kind of thing that I want to make. And I'd had my eye on Spin Cycle yarns for a while. It's very expensive for what it is, especially where they're 50-gram skeins. And I also couldn't quite get my head around the fact that they were calling some things worsted, which I feel quite classically like a DK or even a fingering weight. But because this pattern is done in Spin Cycle yarns, I felt confident buying the yarn for that rather than trying to adjust it into anything else. So I'm going to be knitting these on, so this pattern's knit flat and then seamed at the back. So I'm going to be knitting on some Leica needles. I'm going to knit it on 4 mils, which I think it's recommended to knit on 3.5s. But again, I'm going up a size or a couple of sizes just because I knit quite tight really, and I'd like some length on it, and I'm happy for it to be drapier if I'm knitting on a slightly bigger needle. And then these are the 3 colours that I'm using for it. So it uses 3 balls of Spin Cycle, and how am I going to hold these? Oh, there we go. So I'm using these 3 colours. So we have here, we have Mississippi Masala, which is that one. We have Wololo, which is that one. And then we have Burning Sensation, which is this one. And I think my plan is for it to go kind of dark to light. I think so, kind of like that. I think is the way, or like that, I suppose, is the way that I'm planning on doing it. So I'm excited. This, like I said, will be the next to cast on. I'm excited to see how they work up, because it was already quite interesting how different they are from how they looked in the skein to now they're caked up. So I'm even more interested to see how they actually knit together. And yeah, like I said, that will probably be my next cast on, because I'm really excited to get started on that. And looks like a relatively straightforward pattern. And it uses, I think it's mostly kind of slip stitches and to build the pattern. I'll put up a picture of what the finished one looks like. And then that's everything that I'm working on, or that I'm planning on working on, that I've made. Like I said, obviously won't go through everything I've ever made every single time I make one of these. From going forward, I'll talk about finished objects that I've made since I last spoke. I find that I'm a relatively slow crocheter and knitter, so I feel like it will be more works in progress than it will be finished objects, but then sometimes there'll probably be just finished objects and no works in progress, which I'm excited about. So I guess that's everything. I don't think I had anything else that I wanted to talk about. If you're still watching, thank you for watching to the end of my first video. My plan is to probably do these monthly. And then I might do other videos in between. I might do, if there's something else happening or if there's anything specifically I want to talk about, I might do kind of vlogs of kind of things I've made in a week and talk about specifically like a week of making that I've been doing. I'm not really sure, to be honest. We will see. If you enjoyed any of this, a like would be great. If you want to subscribe, that would be great, but also I've only made one video, so that's a lot of commitment. I'm also on Instagram under the same name, so A Town Called Yarn. So that's probably where you'll get more up-to-date things. I'll share kind of things as I'm doing them there. I'm trying to be a bit more active on there. I really like Instagram and I really like sharing things on Instagram. I just find I forget, but my plan is to share more there as well. And then I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.